I wanted to pass on something really fun that ran across to me through Mika. Mika's a guy out of Cali, really successful 198. We have yet to lock up, and Mika, trust me, you perpetuate some of my training to this day. Let's go. But he did a love note to arm wrestling, essentially. And what he did is he basically said, dear arm wrestling, and then wrote about what it meant to him. And when I read his, it allowed me to reflect on what arm wrestling did to me. And I stole his post and did my own. And basically what I wanted to write about was this sport, you make friendships that are different. You show up to a function, and it's not like we showed up to watch a football game and cheer for a bunch of guys that we're excited about. We show up and cheer for each other, and we are in the game, and we are all stars of the game. Some people may be better than others, but when you're up there, it's one-on-one. And the fact that it's one-on-one, man, your whole team can get behind you. And you'll sometimes win things you maybe shouldn't have won. And those feelings are shared with a crew of like-minded individuals. You're never alone in this sport. Combat sports was like that too. Everyone I've ever been involved with, everybody's pretty excited. We couldn't show up on Sundays and just beat the shit out of each other, even though we did sometimes. But going into work scuffed, first going into work with, hurt elbows, people are like, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm holding myself, right? Or I'd been to work before and people were like, how was the weekend, man? And I was like, I was great. Forgetting, I've got 2 black eyes from a broken nose. And they're like, did you get it? I was like, oh, me and the homies, we were sparring or whatever we were doing, right? In this sport, it is part of me wants to say a mild version of that, but you go 3 hours on a table, fucking elbow grinding with the homies and drunk. That last hour is ruthless, right? UFC fight's over. We've been arm wrestling for 3+ hours, and here we are strapping back up and going, let's just do a hold, let's just do a hold. And a just do a hold turns into a grinder. But this is my love letter to arm wrestling, right? Give me the grinder at 12 o'clock at night to 1. Those are the moments that make it great. They make it greater than your greatest win. Even though that might, at that moment, feel like the best thing that ever happened. It was the lead up, man. It was the people you met, the friends you've had, the way that this sport kind of, I go to a place, let's say I go to Wyoming for a competition, have really rough travel. I meet Jamie Sheldon, who's like this great guy. I had an amazing conversation with him, learned all about the sport. You end up, after a competition, gripping up with people all night, learning from them. Like the fact that I can lose to you, then you can teach me to beat you, and now I'm working you on the table is like, this is the magic. Whoever bottles that, thank God you're rich. Moving on. Thank you so much, Arm Wrestling. I'm Dustin Dewoody. A lot of people know me as Dustin Pulls. I got into arm wrestling nearly 4 years ago, and in a gym, just working out as normal. Much smaller guy doing some interesting pulling on a lever, right? He's doing some weird stuff, and I'm like, oh, that looks good for your forearms. I wonder if that guy's like an arm wrestler or something. And I made a comment, and he was like, actually, I am, and I'd love to arm wrestle you. For $60. And I was like, he's like a 160-pound dude. I was 200 pounds, and I was like, yeah, man, I'd absolutely take you up on that. That sounds amazing. And I was someone who was a bartender, and I used to put my tip jar up against your wallet on your cash, right? And I always had more in my tip jar. So let's go. And just for whatever reason, I could push people's arms down. I'd done it for a long time. But this guy pulled up Arm Bet, which was super cool. Looked like something out of, like Google Maps. And I was like, oh my gosh, all these people arm wrestle. It was like bloop, 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 bloop. All these names popped up. And he's like, yeah, and this guy, Mark, he's the house we all go to. Well, cool. Sunday morning, I got geared up. Pops went with me. We went to Mark's house. And they had a table with pads and pegs, and they're like, yeah, it got me safe, right? Your chest has to face your hand, your eyes can't leave your knuckle. That's really all we're gonna tell you. And I was like, cool. Have to hang on to the peg. Got it. Don't know which foot to put forward, so they got me right. And I went against this guy, and he was just a smaller dude, and I cracked him. Got to pull with a bunch of guys that were at the practice, had a really good time. The coach kicked the shit out of me, much bigger dude, great big lever. His name's Mark Metzger. He's had wars with a lot of guys in Cali. Jody will know him for sure. Good guy, really nice guy. And he spent a lot of time with me because I was strong enough to give him a bunch of pressures where he wanted to work. And wasn't sure I could make 200 pounds. And basically he said, if you make it, we got a tournament in a couple weeks. Let's go. I went to that tournament and busted every single person there back. Had a great time doing it. And I've never missed a practice since. Leonard and Denise were running the first tournament I went to. So it was run really well. There was way more people than I expected to be at something like this. Went in, got on the table. When there's a ref, everything changes in my opinion. Like the best way to train for this sport instantly to me was compete. As much as I could, I was gonna go to tournaments. Because when I got up there, I loved looking at this guy and they were like, go. And then I was so slow. I just and then I was like, oh, and I had really good pronation and it would just bust hands back. And I just felt like, especially at that level, once someone had no hand, they shit the bed. They didn't know what to do. So I just went right through everybody, both hands. And that was pretty consistent for my first 3 tournaments. I just left and right. Had some wars with a guy named Doug, which was super fun. Guy looked like Thor, really jacked, like a bearded Thor. And had some fights with him. It was funny. We would lock up high. There was an interesting fight for height. And as we'd come down, I'd just come over the top of his hand. So shout out to you, Doug. When I decided to make the move from Nevada to Texas, I had a great job offer. And I jumped all over it in terms of the money, making some waves in my company and making a name for myself. It was kind of a no-brainer. Although I was on a good path where I was at, arm wrestling weirdly was a big part of my move. Talking to my coach knew who Greg Gray was, who was one of the top 176ers at the time in North America. So he reached out to him and that team, and they kind of got things moving. At least, hey, I have a guy who's coming out there. I will say, it felt like no one knew I was coming. I got here, and the week I got here, I get hit with Texas State is happening right now. So, okay, that weekend, I went and made weight in San Antonio, 198. They ended up merging the 198s and the 220s that year. Dimitri and John Brzenk go to war. Crazy! There's 300 plus people at this tournament. Everything I had ever been to were much smaller events. Nothing to this scale. 300 plus pullers, and then everybody brought their mom and their kids and they're cheering. This place was completely packed. I mean, if the fire marshal showed up, they're kicking us out and shutting it down. It was insane. Watching that high-level match between Dimitri and John, I was so inspired. I'm ready to conquer the world. No one stood a chance at that point. I didn't even know I was going against 220 guys until probably more than a year later. Then people were like, you pulled 220s, and I was like, I've never done that. But, yep, I ended up winning the whole thing right-handed, and a strong Mike Zamora actually beat me lefty, and that's when I realized that I had a discrepancy for sure. Oh, my first Supermatch is a great story. So I was really struggling with the sport in terms of being, well into my 30s involved in the sport. And can I catch a lot of these young bucks that I'm pulling with, and even guys that I'm beating up, right? They're much younger, but if we're even close, I'm like, man, their ceiling has to be rather high. I've just trained strength my whole life. So on the way driving to my first super match, which I came from MMA, boxing, and it reminded me so much of driving to a venue. And I was scared. Like I had fear in me. And I was like, oh shit. You forget that this is the part you loved about even those sports. At the time, it's terrible. But as I was feeling it, there was nostalgia. And I was like, in those moments, I remember hating it. I'm sick. I shouldn't be doing this. Why am I getting back in the cage with this fool? But at the same time, I'm like, this is awesome. So instead, this time it was just like, this is awesome. Let's go. So ended up making that move, go out there in Hawthorne, Nevada, nowhere land. And this guy was good. And he was strong. He was a hoss. His name was Kyle. I wish I could remember Kyle's last name. Regardless, I knew exactly who he was, and he was talked about. get up there, and I decided if he beats me, I understand that the ceiling may be too high for me, and because my training priorities are kind of all over the place, this might be eating a little too much of my time. If he beats me, I'm gonna quit. This isn't for me. I don't have the tendon strength, nor can I catch it to be, if I'm doing something, I'm going all in. And I wouldn't be able to be all in. And I fucking hammered the guy. And it was awesome. And you know, in this sport, when you hammer through somebody, but it was a good fight, you have a great hug in it. And man, afterward, we're on the table talking technicalities. I'm pulling with other guys in there that could beat me up. And I'm like, okay, this is for me. I love these guys. Let's go. Leading a team is an interesting way of looking at my current situation, because I don't find myself as a leader of a team as much as like a really, really involved person with everybody on the team. We've got guys that have been around in the sport for a lot longer than me. I think they're better than me at the sport. But I really like helping others, helping teammates, being involved in not just the betterment of their arm wrestling skills, but like the betterment of your character and the betterment of who you are and the betterment of friendships and strengthening bonds. And I think that arm wrestling is a really, really awesome framework, which is why the sport works so well. And I fit really well into that framework wherever I go. So getting to inspire younger guys like Trayton Black, being involved with guys who come in the sport like Trey Johnson, who's really strong and passionate already when you meet him, and then you're like, oh, he can be better than me. Those are parts that for me are paramount. Helping the guys that you can hold center, but then like growing the guys that you know whose stock is really high. Being in a relationship with someone who's involved in the sport as well, man, we're talking about a unicorn, right? She is technical and understands the sport rather well in a different way, as being somebody who stood by and watched it, paid really close attention to what's happening, and the ability to come onto the table and transfer it really well. I would say your technique's better than most of the guys on the team, and it's almost frustrating to watch because we all put in way more time, right? But with that being said, the problem with her competing, it's at 125 pounds in North America. There's just not enough girls that show up to compete. Not enough guys get their girl off the couch and start going after it. And I think for her and I, getting her on the table, guys, I see too many posts saying, I'm not allowed to go to another arm wrestling event. Your girl's amazing if she doesn't care if you go to another arm wrestling event. Put your girl on the table and she can't wait to go with you to another arm wrestling event because she understands what you're going through there. And also, like how much it increases your fitness together, right? We started off as two people training together and took training together to another level when you start competing together, and that's gold. Talking physical fitness is a really big deal. Talking arm wrestling specific physical fitness is also a really big deal. For me, I've always trained to be hard to die, right? I want to train for it to be really hard for you to kill me if you come in my house or we have a problem. I also want it to be really hard to kill me if I come up on some kind of terrible disease. That's, in my life, my pillars of health, the most important thing to me would be my physical fitness or health in general. So arm wrestling specific training for my entirety will always play second fiddle to that. I'm very into the sport and understanding how to get better at it. I understand very well what it means to get stronger, not as well as I understand my general conditioning. So it's definitely a pillar I could rise. With that being said though, there is a place for arm wrestling specific training in any training program that's really easy to drop right in if you're already a guy that's involved in the gym. One of the other beauties of that, I mean, we have a guy on the team that's lost 130 pounds, and he did that in just over a year being involved in the sport because he decided, I don't need to be this big, weird guy. I hang out with all these fit guys. I can be fit too. And he's on the table and he's inspired and he's getting stronger and getting stronger. And now when we grip up, I got to go, all right, look at you. All right, I can feel those calories are gone. Let's go. And he's becoming a bull. And one of the interesting things that a lot of these super heavies need to realize is as you get lower in weight, I promise them boys get stronger. 242 boys, that's when you start getting mean, right? Because the supers, you're gonna have a lot of overweight guys, but you're gonna have like the highest level, it's the best, right? At the highest level, Levon kills everybody, right? It's the best, cream of the crop. But when you're an out of shape guy, find your frame. Figure out where you're supposed to be. Where would it feel good to go running around? Where am I hard to die? And then worry about your arm wrestling. Worry about them in tandem, right? But I really think a paramount way to look at this sport is I need to be fitter. I need to be fitter in general. I need to find my greatest self, and I need to train arm wrestling. But if you're just like, oh, I'm just gonna JM press and I'm gonna curl, that's being crazy. I'm gonna just use a cable pulley in my garage. You can work out in your garage. Go for a run though. Get your heart right, get your body right, feel the best you've ever been, and be involved in a strength sport. And the biggest part to remember is at the end of the day, we're involved in a strength sport. Train strong. Arm wrestling, when I got involved, I had no scope. I really just didn't know anything about arm wrestling. I can't believe that the WAL got past me without ever noticing it. And granted, I was in the military for years. I was an outside guy, right? I didn't spend much time on the couch. There's not a whole lot of days on my back. And I'm a gamer, right? I want to play video games when I have off time. I just want to be very active at all times. So really, arm wrestling, before I got into it, really got away from me. But even as I got in, man, I just showed up and banged. I wanted to beat people. This was my new combat sport. And it was a way for me to let loose and not hurt anybody, which is important. Now my scope is very dialed in. I have eyes on particular athletes. I like the Michael Bedwells of the world, the guys that surprise the hell out of me and are some of the best guys I've ever met in general, the Tim Talmadge of the world, Craig Toulier's, these monsters, gripping up with Dan Mosier, feeling something nuts. That made me dial in on individual athletes, right? If you said to me, what's your favorite football team? I really can't tell you. And I don't know if that's embarrassing to say, but I would be like, I really like Patrick Mahomes. He does cool things with the ball. I'll watch a game with him just to kind of see how he articulates on the field. I felt the same way about Brady and Jerry Rice, the way he moved, the way his hands worked. In this sport, you get to see that at a very highlighted level because of how close a lot of the game takes place, right? Understanding that the pad is a field, understanding that the hands, there's a lot going on in there, the way frames work as you put them on the line or come outside, and having different guys that do different things really well has enabled me to dial in on not only what I want to be, but where I could take other athletes when I see their lane. So the sport now, you have King of the Table, which I think is cool. I think it's the less serious version of East versus West. I think East versus West is premium right now. I think what they're doing at Knuckles Up is really cool. So there's a lot of different ways to watch. Pay-per-views are incredibly cheap. Take my money. I want to support these guys. You're asking me for 15 bucks? Of course. Are you kidding? That's nothing. I watch every single UFC. It's my favorite sport. Done it for more than 10 years. This is way easier to follow. No problem. I think that my issue with it all, though, is I don't know if it's grown since WAL. I really, going back and watching their product, I love it. What they're doing is really cool. I think the piece that, especially here at Flashpin, getting to work with these guys, the piece that I want to bring in is meeting and greeting and understanding families and friends and relatability. Something that the UFC does really well when they're rolling out an embedded series. On the way to watching a UFC, I've watched every embedded Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday at work. I'm talking to the homie like, dude, did you watch so-and-so and so-and-so, what they were doing? Some of the things they're doing training-wise, it's a mistake or it's something he's doing really well and going to be able to capitalize, right? His lateral movement looks fantastic. He's going to be able to get in and out, and I don't see that from so-and-so. Being able to do that in arm wrestling or being able to bring that to arm wrestling is the future of the sport, in my opinion. Maybe just at a ground level. We have a lot of homegrown athletes in North America that I think don't get the love they deserve. And we just got to figure out how to do that piece and, make people relatable. Where was I? Okay, my role in the sport going forward. I'm really involved in Flash Pin. I really enjoy getting to meet with athletes, kind of make them sound cooler than cool and feel like heroes. And being up there, it takes a lot of guts. There's a lot of glory. And highlighting the guts and the glory is something I really have a lot of fun with. And I just want to get better and better at doing that. So I would say that's a major highlight for me, getting to be a part of it. But as a competitor, I'm on my show, right? And I'm watching some of these guys that I've annihilated, and they're up there getting to be heroes. So a lot of me wants to be a hero too, but that's a lot to juggle because the energy that I'm giving to everybody is mega. So keeping that energy high and giving them something to look back on for the rest of their lives, that's pretty paramount to me. It means a lot. Getting to go up there and compete means a lot to my life though. That's my legacy in the sport, and I'm not done cracking wrist.